Show her out. The words were quiet, almost pleasant. The kind of words that didn't need to be loud because the person saying them had never needed volume to be obeyed. Tiffany Cole stopped walking. She turned. A Korean woman stood behind her. Mid-30s. Elegant. Dark hair swept up. Wearing the kind of dress that cost more than most people's rent and carrying herself like she knew it. Her eyes were on Tiffany with the particular expression of a woman who had already made every decision she intended to make tonight and was simply waiting for everyone else to catch up. "I don't believe you belong here," she said. Tiffany looked at her steadily. "I was personally invited." "By whom?" "By the man whose name is on this building." Something moved across the woman's face. Not surprise. She already knew. That was the thing Tiffany would understand later. She already knew everything and did it anyway. "My brother invites many people," she said pleasantly. "That doesn't always mean they're expected. My name is on the list." "Lists," she said, "can be amended." She turned to the man at the entrance. "Show her out." Tiffany looked at this woman for one long moment. "You have no idea what you just did," she said quietly. The woman met her eyes without flinching. "I know exactly what I did." "No," Tiffany said simply. "You don't." She turned and walked away. Composed. Unhurried. Like a woman who had decided that this moment was not going to break her even if it wanted to. Her phone was already in her hand before she reached the pavement. He didn't answer. She left a message. Calm. Clear. 3 sentences. Then she called a car and stood in the night air in a wine-red dress she had chosen carefully for tonight and waited. The car came. She got in. She left. And inside that venue, a man who did not yet know what had just happened was moving through a room full of powerful people, completely unaware that the most important thing about tonight had already occurred outside at the entrance without him. He was going to find out. And when he did, nothing about that evening was going to survive it. If this story already has you, hit that like button right now and subscribe if you haven't. Because where this goes next, nobody in that room saw coming, and trust me, you wouldn't want to miss that, would you? Stay with me. 3 months before that night, Tiffany Cole was simply trying to get to a meeting on time. She was not thinking about anyone. She was not looking for anyone. She was a 28-year-old interior designer with her own small firm and a client meeting on the 14th floor of a glass tower downtown, and exactly 7 minutes to get there. She stepped into the elevator. Hit the button. Checked her phone. Stepped out. Wrong floor. 22nd floor. A corridor that was clearly not where she needed to be. She turned around immediately and walked directly into a man coming the other way. Files scattered. Her bag hit the floor. They both bent at the same time and their hands closed around the same folder simultaneously. She looked up. He looked at her. He was Korean. Early 30s. Dark suit. A face that was still in a way that felt deliberate rather than natural, like someone who had learned a long time ago that stillness was a form of power and had never unlearned it. Wrong floor, she said. Clearly, he said. He helped her gather everything without being asked. Walked her back to the elevator in silence that wasn't uncomfortable, the specific silence of 2 people who don't need to fill space. When the doors opened, he held them. Thank you, she said. 14th floor, he said. Room 1402. You have 3 minutes. She stared at him. How do you know that? I own the building, he said simply. The doors closed. She made her meeting with 2 minutes to spare and spent the entire afternoon thinking about a man she didn't know the name of. He found her the next day. 1 message. Through channels she didn't know he had access to. I didn't get your name. She stared at the message for a long time. Read it again. Put her phone down. Picked it up. Then she replied. His name was Baek Tae-soo. She found out what that meant not all at once, but gradually, in the slow accumulation of things that didn't quite add up until they did. The building he owned. The way people moved when he entered rooms. The calls he took privately with a voice that was different from the voice he used with her. She asked him directly one evening. He told her directly. She was quiet for a long moment. Are you afraid? He asked. No, she said. I just needed to know what I was deciding. And? I'm still here, she said. She was still here 3 months later when he told her about the event. They were at dinner. He put down his glass and looked at her with the particular directness he always looked at her with, no performance, no softening, just the thing itself. There's an event in 3 weeks, he said. It's important to my world. I want you there. She looked at him carefully. Are you sure? I don't do things I'm not sure about, he said. She almost smiled. I know. She said yes. What neither of them knew was that someone else had already been told. And that someone had already started making plans of her own. Bektaisa built his empire before he was 30. Not inherited. Not gifted. Constructed through decisions made in rooms most people never enter and consequences absorbed without flinching, and a patience that looked like stillness from the outside and felt like controlled fire from the inside. He was 32 years old, and there was not a single person in his world who did not understand exactly where the power sat. His sister ran the operational side of things. Had always been beside him. Sharp. Efficient. The person he trusted with everything because she had been protecting everything before he was old enough to protect it himself. He told her about the event 3 weeks out. Not specifically about Tiffany. Just that there would be a guest. An important one. Chayaran had nodded. Said nothing. He should have said more. He understood that now. He should have sat his sister down and told her clearly, this woman matters. This woman is coming. This woman is not a variable you get to manage. He didn't. And that gap between what he said and what he should have said was exactly the space his sister walked through. The night of the event, he moved through the room with the ease of a man who has never been anywhere he didn't belong. Shaking the right hands. Saying the right things. In the back of his mind, the knowledge that she was coming. That tonight he stopped keeping her separate. At 8:47 p.m., he checked his phone. One voicemail. Her voice. Calm. 3 sentences. He listened once. Then again. He put the phone in his pocket, and the room around him kept moving, the conversations, the glasses, the handshakes, all of it continuing like nothing had shifted. But something had shifted. And everyone in that room was about to feel it. Chayaran had been protecting her brother since he was 7 years old. Their world had required it. The things they grew up inside required someone to stand between Taisu and everything that wanted to consume him before he was strong enough to stand alone. She was that person. She was still that person. In her mind. Even now when he was 32 and the most powerful man in every room he entered. She had found out about Tiffany 2 weeks before the event. Quietly. The way she found out everything through the right people, without asking directly, without leaving a trace of the asking. She didn't like what the finding out felt like. Not because of who Tiffany was. Not her background. Not her work. Not anything specific that she could point to and justify. Just the feeling of someone arriving from a direction she wasn't watching. Someone Taisu had chosen without consulting her. That had never happened before. She turned that feeling into a decision. Told herself it was protection. What she never examined, what she had never once examined, was the trail of people her own need for control had dismantled. The man 2 years ago who was patient and warm and who she had taken apart piece by piece until he left. The one before him. The one before that. Her brother had noticed every single one. He had never stopped saying it. Chayaran, how is that working for you? She always dismissed it. Tonight, she would not be able to dismiss anything. Because tonight her brother was about to walk back into an empty room and ask her a question she had no answer to, and the silence that followed was going to be the loudest thing either of them had ever sat inside. The venue was everything Tice's world promised. Crystal chandeliers. Men in dark suits. Conversations that sounded like pleasantries and meant something else entirely. Tiffany arrived at 8:30 p.m. Wine red dress. Hair up. Small gold earrings. She had dressed carefully, not to impress, but because she understood what tonight meant. She knew this was the first time he was bringing her into his world openly, and she had shown up for it completely. She gave her name at the entrance. The man checked the list. Found it. Began to nod her through. One moment. A hand on her arm. Light. Firm. She turned. She had never seen this woman before. But something in the way this woman was looking at her told her immediately that the reverse was not true. I don't believe we've met, the woman said. Her voice was warm. Her eyes were not. I'm a guest, Tiffany said. I was personally invited. By whom? By Bektaisu. Something moved across the woman's face. Not surprise. She already knew. She had known for 2 weeks. This was not a misunderstanding. This was a decision made in advance and being executed now at the entrance of an event in front of other arriving guests. My brother invites many people to many things, she said. That doesn't always mean they're expected. My name is on the list, Tiffany said. Her voice completely steady. Her hands completely still. Lists, Charan said pleasantly, can be amended. She turned to the man at the door. Show her out. Please. The man hesitated. One visible second of hesitation because her name was on the list and something about this felt wrong in a way he couldn't act on. I'm sorry, ma'am, he said quietly to Tiffany. If you'll just… It's fine, Tiffany said. She didn't look at him. She kept her eyes on the woman who had just done this. You have no idea what you just did, she said. Quiet. Clear. Not a threat. Just the truth said plainly by a woman who was certain of it. Charan held her gaze. I know exactly what I did. No, Tiffany said. You don't. She turned. Walked away from the entrance. The man beside her kept a respectful distance because the air around her required it. She was on the phone before she reached the pavement. It rang. Went to voicemail. Hey, she said. Calm. Measured. Something happened at the door tonight. I'm heading home. Don't worry about it tonight, we can talk later. She hung up. Called a car. Stood on the pavement outside the most important event of his year in a dress she had chosen carefully and waited. She did not cry. She was not broken. But she was human. And being human meant that somewhere underneath the composure something was sitting with the particular ache of a woman who had shown up fully for something and been told without words that her fully was not enough for this room. The car arrived. She got in. She left. Inside the venue, Charan straightened her dress. Returned to the room. Satisfied. Certain. Completely unaware that her brother had already listened to the voicemail twice and was already walking toward her. Taisu found her in the center of the room. He didn't pull her aside. Didn't perform anything. He simply appeared beside her and said, You had her removed. Not a question. Charan turned to look at him. I was protecting. From what? He said. She opened her mouth. He turned away from her. Walked to the center of the room. The conversations around him slowed. Stopped. The way they always stopped when Taisu decided something was finished. The evening is over, he said. Thank you for coming. Nobody questioned it. The room emptied in 11 minutes. When the last guest left, he turned back to his sister. Just the two of them now in an enormous empty venue. Her name was on the list, he said. I know. You removed her anyway. I was protecting you. You were deciding, he said. You were deciding for me. Again. A pause. I am 32 years old, Charan. And I have been keeping you alive since you were 7. I know what you did, he said. His voice dropped lower. Not angrier. Lower. I know what it cost you. And I am telling you that what you did tonight is not the same thing. It was never the same thing. She said nothing. He looked at her for a long moment. You have spent your whole life deciding who is worthy of the people around you, he said quietly. Tell me something. When was the last time anyone decided you were worthy of them? The silence that followed was the longest either of them had sat inside. Something moved behind Charan's eyes. Not the cold certainty that was usually there, but something underneath it. Something that had been there for a long time and had not been looked at directly until now. Figure out how to fix this, he said. He picked up his jacket and walked out. The door closed. Charan stood alone in the empty venue. All the chandeliers still burning. The room set for an evening that ended before it started. She sat down at the nearest table. For the first time in a very long time, she didn't know what to do next. And that feeling, unfamiliar and cold and completely her own fault, was only the beginning of what this night was going to cost her. He showed up at her door at 10:43 p.m. Still in his event clothes. She opened it on the second knock. Comfortable clothes. Hair down. Completely herself. She looked at him. He looked at her. I'm sorry, he said. That will never happen again. She leaned against the doorframe. You can't promise that. I just did. Taisu. She said his name the way she always said it, not carefully, not performing, just saying it like a word she had earned. I'm not fragile. I walked away because I chose to. Not because I had to. I know. So don't come here feeling guilty. Come here because you want to. He looked at her for a moment. I want to, he said. She opened the door wider. He came in. They talked for a long time that night. About his sister. About his world. About what it meant to be chosen by someone who lived inside danger and chose you anyway. Why didn't you tell her more about me? Tiffany asked at some point. Not accusatory. Just asking. He was quiet. Because I wanted one thing in my life that belonged only to me before it belonged to everyone else, he said. She looked at him. I understand that, she said. But Taisu, what happened tonight is going to keep happening. Different faces. Different doors. Different reasons. She paused. I need to know that when it does, you're not going to shut down every room. I can fight my own battles. He looked at her. I know you can, he said. But you shouldn't have to fight them alone. She held his gaze for a long moment. Okay, she said quietly. Just okay. Like something had been decided between them that didn't need more words than that. 3 days later, Taisu called a smaller gathering. Inner circle. 15 people. He brought Tiffany. Not quietly. Not carefully. He walked in with her and introduced her to every person in that room. His hand at her back. His posture saying everything his words didn't need to. Nobody said the wrong thing. Later outside the building, Tiffany stopped on the pavement and looked up at the city. They were all looking at me, she said. Yes, Taisa said. That's going to keep happening. Yes. And you're okay with that. I invited you 3 weeks ago, he said. I was okay with it then. Nothing has changed. She looked at him. Something has changed. What? Now they know, she said simply. He reached for her hand. She took it. No more careful. No more private. No more separate. Just chosen. Openly. By a man who does not do things he is not sure about. Sharon called the next morning at 8. He answered on the 3rd ring. I want to meet her, she said. No preamble. Properly. I'll ask her, he said. Taisu. Yes. I'm sorry. The words traveled a long way to get out. I know that doesn't fix what happened. I know sorry doesn't undo a door. But I am. He was quiet for a moment. I know, he said. He hung up. Looked at Tiffany across the breakfast table. She was reading. Completely unbothered. Completely herself in his space. My sister wants to meet you, he said. Tiffany looked up. Considered it for exactly 1 second. Okay, she said. Just okay. No conditions. No performance. No inventory of everything his sister had done. He looked at her. You're remarkable, he said quietly. She went back to her reading. I know, she said. They both almost smiled. Sharon was already seated when they arrived. A small restaurant. Quiet. Neutral ground. Taisu had chosen it deliberately. Not his world. Not a power setting. Just a table and 3 people and whatever was going to happen between them. Tiffany saw her before they sat down. The same woman from the door. Same composure. Same straight back. But something was different tonight. Something around the eyes that hadn't been there at the event. Something that looked like it had cost her to get here. They sat. Sharon looked at Tiffany directly. I owe you an apology, she said. No preamble. No softening. What I did was wrong. Not a misunderstanding. Not a mistake. A decision I made deliberately, and I am telling you directly that it was wrong. Tiffany looked at her for a moment. I know it was, she said simply. Sharon held her gaze. Something in her expression shifted, like she had prepared for anger and received something harder to respond to. Honesty without heat. I'm not going to pretend I don't have concerns, Sharon said. My brother's world is dangerous. The people who get close to him carry that danger. I have spent my whole life managing that. I know what his world is, Tiffany said. I asked him directly. He told me directly. I made my decision with full information. And you stayed. I stayed. Sharon was quiet for a moment. Taisu said nothing. He had said everything he needed to say 3 nights ago in an empty venue. This moment belonged to the 2 of them. You're not what I expected, Sharon said finally. What did you expect? Tiffany asked. Sharon looked at her brother briefly. Then back. Someone easier to dismiss, she said honestly. Tiffany almost smiled. I know. Something shifted in Sharon's face then. Not warmth exactly. Not yet. But the specific expression of a woman who has just encountered someone she cannot file away neatly and has decided reluctantly, genuinely, that she respects that. I'd like to start again, Sharon said. If you're willing. Tiffany looked at her for a long moment. I'm willing, she said. Taisa reached for his glass. Said nothing. But something in the set of his shoulders, something only someone paying very close attention would catch, was the closest thing to relief that Baek Tae-soo ever allowed himself to show. They walked home. Not because it was practical, the city was cold and the restaurant was 40 minutes from his apartment. But because neither of them said let's get a car, and so they just kept walking and the city moved around them and it felt like exactly the right thing. She's not what I expected either, Tiffany said after a while. What did you expect? Someone easier to hate, she said. He looked at her. And? She's going to be difficult, Tiffany said. And complicated. And probably exhausting. A pause. But she loves you. In the only way she knows how. Which is badly and completely. He was quiet for a moment. Yes, he said. Tiffany looked up at the city above them. The lights. The height of everything. I used to think love was supposed to be easy, she said. That if it was hard it meant something was wrong. She paused. I don't think that anymore. What do you think now? She looked at him. I think the right things are worth the difficulty, she said. I think showing up even when a door gets closed in your face, that's not weakness. That's just knowing what you're choosing. He stopped walking. She stopped beside him. He looked at her in the way he sometimes looked at her, without the stillness, without the controlled distance, just directly. Like she was the only thing in the frame worth looking at. I choose you, he said. Not carefully. Not quietly. Not in private anymore. A pause. I should have said that before I let you walk into that door alone. I won't make that mistake again. She looked at him for a long moment. I choose you too, she said. Difficult sister and all. He reached for her hand. She took it. They stood there on the pavement in the middle of the city with the cold around them and the lights above them and nothing careful or private or separate between them anymore. Just two people. Chosen. The next morning was quiet. The city moved outside the windows. Everything felt settled. Everything felt earned. Then her phone buzzed on the table. She glanced at the screen. Something changed in her face. Just slightly. Just enough, a stillness that was different from her usual stillness. The kind that happens when something you thought was behind you suddenly appears in front of you. Tyson noticed. He noticed everything. Everything okay? He said. She looked at the screen for one more second. Then she turned the phone face down on the table. Yes, she said. But her voice was just a fraction quieter than it was a moment ago. And the name on that screen, the name she just saw before she turned it over, was not a name that belonged in this morning. It was a name from before. From a version of her life she had closed a door on. A man who had no business knowing where she was or who she was with. But he knew. And he was reaching out. Which meant one thing. He had seen her name attached to Baek Tae-soo's world. And he had decided that changed things. If this story wrecked you, hit that like button right now. Subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. Drop a comment below, because that last notification on her phone? Tell us what you think it means. We read every single one. Share this with someone who needs to see it. Thank you for watching. We will see you in the next one.